Jack Turner gazed intently at Peter Fuller's round face, his eyes full of honeyed sweetness, while subtly gesturing with 2 fingers. Only this much? Peter Fuller thought, damn it, my luck's been rotten lately, losing more than winning at cards, and then there are those 20-something-year-old country girls, fresh from the beauty parlor, each one with a tiny waist, full breasts, curvy hips, and pretty faces, making him drool like a waterfall, but his pockets are empty. His family owns a shop, earning a few $100,000 a year, but getting a few hundred from his wife, who controls the finances, is harder than climbing to heaven. Short hands from taking people's money, short tongue from eating people's food. If you take their money, you gotta find a way to give back. Peter Fuller thought, no matter how tight things are, how short on cash, it's best not to touch this money. Are you tempting me to do something wrong? Peter Fuller asked seriously, gently pushing the red envelope back towards Jack Turner. Not at all. Jack Turner laughed, pushing it back to Peter Fuller. Are you trying to drag me down with you? Peter Fuller gently pushed it back towards Jack Turner again. It's not that serious. Jack Turner chuckled, pushing it back to Peter Fuller, while giving a slight cough. Peter Fuller quickly stashed it in his desk drawer, looked up, saw no movement, meaning no one was coming. Oh dear, I've been tricked, I've boarded his pirate ship. That's more like it, brother. Jack Turner said, his smile barely concealing his triumph. What do you want me to do? Peter Fuller asked anxiously in a low voice. Brother, I won't make things difficult for you. Jack Turner said, glancing around before whispering, for you, it's just a small matter. How? Follow the rules, fire him by the book. Hashtag Chapter 20, Bad Boys Attract New Girls. Peach Blossom, a natural white sand beach, 159 meters long and 569 meters wide, is a city's largest. Its fame spread further after blockbuster TV series like Legend of the Condor Heroes, The Return of the Condor Heroes, and Demigods and Semi-Devils were filmed there, attracting tourists from all over. Peach Blossom, with its blue sea and sky, waves lapping the shore, is a picturesque scene. In summer, the beach is packed like a loom. The hotter it gets, the more crowded it becomes. The more tourists, the busier the lifeguards, whose job, though difficult, is paramount, a matter of life and death. People in all sorts of swimwear, in every color, tall, short, fat, thin, small, large, beautiful, ugly, male, female, old, young, all come and go on the beach. Some surf in the double-decker area, some ride the waves, some float, some are almost completely exposed above the water, some have waves up to their necks and shoulders, some wear life jackets, some wear swimming rings, some wear nothing at all, and there are even nudists, mostly men, a few women, some with ulterior motives. Couples steal moments of passion under the cover of the waves. Here, young men and women of all shapes and sizes, in every imaginable form, do things you can't even fathom. William Miller witnesses it all on the crowded beach. As the beach manager, no matter how much he dislikes them, he can't avoid them. Isn't that Emily Grant? William Miller's pupils reflected a figure, his mind instantly reacting. Before his eyes, a graceful girl, walking with the lithe suppleness of a cat, like a model striding towards the sea. Because she was wearing a swimsuit, her slender waist swayed, and so did her shapely backside. He was very familiar with that graceful figure. 8 or 9 times out of 10 it was Emily Grant. That girl. Lately, Emily seemed to be avoiding him more and more, to the point where she now completely ignored him. Damn it! What did he do to offend her? This girl, with her proper appearance, he liked her beyond words, he couldn't let her slip away so easily. Emily Grant. Emily Grant. William Miller touched his head and nose, looked up in astonishment, his movements quick and fluid. He unconsciously stood up and hurriedly chased after her a few steps. Excuse me. The swimsuit-clad beauty turned her head and smiled, a truly devastating smile, her long, shapely legs trembling on the soft yellow sand, her body quivering slightly, hesitant to move forward. Indeed, she was the universally admired beauty, Emily Grant. Don't you see me? Are you too good for me? Beautiful lady. William Miller's eyes twinkled mischievously. No. Emily Grant looked directly at William Miller, murmuring, William Miller, don't misunderstand. I thought I shouldn't bother you while you're working. That's all, nothing else. Bother me? You're too polite. We're friends, aren't we? William Miller snuck a glance at her proudly high chest and the indented triangle below, his voice full of masculinity. You're so smooth. You're just good at sweet-talking girls. I wonder how many girls you've charmed already. Emily Grant said with a smile. At this moment, men and women in various swimsuits passed around her, some going down to the beach beside her, some coming up from the beach, some circling around her, and some just wandering back and forth near her. Ha, no amount of sweet-talking will work on you, beautiful. William Miller's eyes were full of amusement. Ugh. Emily Grant knew she couldn't win against his silver tongue, his witty remarks always leaving her speechless. She shot him a sideways glance, then smiled charmingly and said, William Miller, thank you for your concern. Please go about your business. You don't have to worry about me, okay? Well, if you ever need anything, you must ask me for help. William Miller said cheerfully, thinking to himself, it's fine, I'll just secretly protect her, since I like her so much. Definitely. Definitely. Emily Grant swayed her supple body, running down to the beach, sometimes disappearing into the crowd of men and women, sometimes reappearing on the ceaselessly undulating waves. Hey! Another slender figure in a swimsuit appeared beside William Miller, truly startling him. Rose. William Miller quickly took off his large sunglasses, holding them in his hand, his face lighting up as he saw Rose Miles. So, what do you think, William? Rose Miles twirled her slender, graceful figure, showing off her new swimsuit to William Miller. Beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. William Miller quickly exaggerated, feigning astonishment. Rose Miles's swimsuit, with its sky blue background dotted with milky white flowers, was very fashionable. It wasn't too revealing, meaning it didn't show too much, but it wasn't too conservative either, covering the essential parts of a woman while revealing what could be shown. He. Twirling around a few times, Rose Miles cheerfully crouched in front of William Miller, placing her delicate white hand on his knee. A surge of heat rushed to his head, his gaze fixed, unable to look away. His eyes were glued to Rose Miles' full, creamy, white rabbits, and though they were completely covered, he was still stirred by primal urges, almost losing control. At such close proximity, witnessing Rose Miles' ample bosom jiggle before him, like freshly steamed buns, even though he wasn't a greenhorn seeing a girl for the first time, he couldn't tear his eyes away. Instantly, William Miller made his move, his actions faster than imaginable. With so many people around, are you trying to get yourself killed? William Miller was fast, but Rose Miles was faster. With lightning speed, she slapped William Miller's hand as it groped her chest. Ouch! William Miller let out a fake cry of pain, rubbing his head and chuckling mischievously. Serves you right. Rose Miles glared at William Miller, a suppressed smile playing on her lips as she stared at him. Why are you only here now? William Miller asked, feigning innocence. I'm not as free as some people. Rose Miles blinked, pouting and sniffing. She comes and goes as she pleases, whenever she wants. I'm tied down, I have to wait until work is over. Do you think it's easy for me? All right, you're a busy person, tied down, I was wrong, okay. I surrender. William Miller, fearing Rose Miles' incessant nagging, raised his hands in surrender, his sunglasses in hand like a white flag, looking quite comical. No way. Rose Miles giggled, unable to contain her laughter. What do you want? You crybaby. William Miller teased, grinning. You hateful William Miller, I'm going to punish you. Rose Miles said coquettishly, not one to back down from a challenge. How do you want to punish me? William Miller asked, his expression changing. Take me swimming. Rose Miles said with a smile. No way. Wait until I'm off work. William Miller said sternly, then grinned slyly, a cunning plan forming in his mind. You're biased. Humph, Emily Grant can boss you around, summon you at will, but you can't make a little sacrifice for me. Humph humph. Rose Miles grew more disgruntled, her pouty red lips sticking out far enough to hang a bottle of oil. William Miller, secretly amused, watched Rose Miles' childish pouting and whining. Ha! Humph humph. Seeing William Miller's continued silence, Rose Miles swayed her graceful body, amping up the coquettishness. Let's go. Just as he'd planned. Uttering a single word that sent Rose Miles into excitement, William Miller yelled, Thomas, come here and cover for me. Then, William Miller grabbed the still-dazed Rose Miles and sped off towards the rippling blue sea. Children of the coast are all natural-born swimmers, every one of them a strong paddler. William Miller led Rose Miles to the third tier of the swimming area, the outermost edge of the fishing nets. William Miller and Rose Miles, like a pair of playful lovebirds, or two small fish, frolicked in the undulating blue waves. Rose Miles, come on, catch up. William Miller turned around, swinging his long arms, parting the waves. The surging waves beside him, like pristine white chrysanthemums, looked magnificent and beautiful. William, wait for me. Rose Miles swung her fair white arms, swimming powerfully, chasing after him. Ha ha ha, William Miller laughed heartily. He, Rose Miles giggled cheerfully. Tired, aren't you, Rose? William Miller slowed down, swimming closer to Rose Miles, and asked solicitously. Sort of. Rose Miles exhaled a puff of seawater, panting. Come here, rest a bit. Seeing Rose Miles' fatigue, William Miller turned over, switching from freestyle to backstroke. He floated effortlessly on the water, his body remaining buoyant even without movement. Rose Miles swam closer, pressing against William Miller. Am I being too selfish? Making William work so hard? Rose Miles didn't dare put her weight on William Miller, and started swimming again, kicking and splashing. It's okay, it's okay. William Miller, seemingly reading Rose Miles's thoughts, reached out and embraced her. Holding Rose Miles, having lost his forward momentum, he used his strong legs like oars to propel them through the water. With a beautiful girl in his arms, William Miller felt incredibly exhilarated. Rose Miles, momentarily overwhelmed by the sensation of skin-on-skin contact, struggled violently and cried out. Don't. William Miller said in a fluster, then suddenly had an idea, how about you also swim on your back? He released his hold. That way, we'll both save energy. Rose Miles said nothing, turned gracefully, and backstroked over to William Miller. Her back against his chest, he looked at Rose Miles's jet-black hair and smelled her faint fragrance. William Miller was overjoyed, thinking to himself, I am the happiest man in the world. He reached out again, caressing the sensitive spots on Rose Miles's alluring body. You naughty boy. You naughty boy. William Miller, you're so bad. Rose Miles didn't protest strongly, only giggling. Men aren't bad, women don't love. William Miller whispered in Rose Miles's ear, grinning mischievously. ### Chapter 21 Beauty, Sophia Mason, vote please. Standing on the beach watching the sunrise is the best view and location. The beach, a beautiful morning, the sun rises on time every day from the vast sea, looking like a red cake being steamed over boiling water, gradually rising to the surface. Soon, the entire flat expanse of sea and sky is dyed a brilliant red, with iridescent clouds of brown, red, yellow, and green, a truly beautiful sight. In a moment, the sunlight floods the soft beach with a reddish gold hue. Another beautiful day begins. Will any good fortune await our protagonist? Captain. Peter Fuller is calling for you. Thomas Dixon said to William Miller, who had just parked his electric car and was walking out of the briefing room with an extremely cheerful expression. Yeah, I know. William Miller waved his hand. Then, he went straight to the captain's office. What's up, Captain? William Miller walked into the office and asked directly, a bright smile on his face. William Miller, you're fired. Peter Fuller scowled, but didn't dare look directly at William Miller. He didn't have a legitimate reason to fire him, so he didn't dare meet his gaze. What? William Miller's eyes widened, jaw dropped, his face a picture of astonishment. He quickly regained his composure. Why, Captain? Tell me. Sigh. Someone's accused you of harassing a tourist. Peter Fuller shot William Miller a pained look, then turned to gaze at the jagged rocks outside the window. He spoke rapidly, as if afraid to forget his words. I told you, no matter how influential or capable someone is, if there's an accusation, and once it's verified, expulsion is the rule. I remember that clearly. But I don't recall being disrespectful to anyone. Who? If I'm not mistaken, disrespect usually implies a female. I truly didn't do anything like that. William Miller furrowed his brow, spread his hands, and shrugged. Captain, even if you want me dead, at least let me know why. You understand? Did swimming in the sea with Rose Miles constitute disrespect towards her? He wondered foolishly. Sophia Mason, the L.T.D. Peter Fuller blurted out a peculiar name. Huh. William Miller seemed to snap out of his daze. Oh. That afternoon, he mediated a dispute between two tourists, using reason and empathy to help them reconcile. Could you please give me some face and stop arguing? We live in a harmonious society, we should value peace, right? Traveling far from home, misunderstandings are bound to happen. Let's be understanding with each other. Besides, taking a step back opens up a wider horizon. Young man, you're absolutely right. I'll listen to you and stop bickering with this friend. My apologies, friend, I was wrong. Tourist A said. No worries. Now that it's all cleared up, it would be petty of me to hold a grudge. My apologies. Tourist B bowed his head to Tourist A. Having resolved the tourist's dispute, William Miller felt quite pleased, humming a tune as he emerged from the sea. Just as he surfaced, he felt a hand touch his back. William Miller spun around to see a young woman leaning towards him, her head bowed. She had a voluptuous figure, with curves in all the right places, her breasts particularly prominent and alluring. She swayed her enticing body slightly before him. William Miller glanced at her a few times and asked amiably, "Excuse me, is there something I can help you with?" When William Miller addressed her, she turned around, leaving him stunned. Her features were unremarkable. Her eyes were deep-set, her forehead jutted out like a rock, her eyes like two small holes beneath it, her nose seemed squashed, and her mouth resembled that of someone of African descent, what they called a thunder mouth. Her figure and features were truly mismatched, she was a real-life L.T.D and Wu Yen combined. William Miller recoiled, the fleeting attraction he felt moments ago evaporating, his appreciative gaze replaced with a guarded one. Handsome, can you teach me to swim? Teach me to swim. As she spoke, she pursued him, reaching out to grab him. William Miller was wearing a tank top and knee-length shorts. Excuse me. Excuse me. Looking at her outstretched hand, William Miller nimbly hopped back, dodging her touch, goosebumps erupting on his skin, a chill running down his spine. Teach me, handsome. She lunged forward as she spoke. William Miller hadn't expected her to be so agile. She embraced him from behind. Her arms tightened around his waist, looping once, her hands clasping his navel. Her face pressed against his back, her ample bosom suffocating him. Can't. You see, this isn't appropriate. William Miller, surrounded by tourists, kept his voice low. He simply wanted to persuade her, this isn't right. I'm working, I can't teach you. Why don't you find someone more skilled, all right? His tone was gentle, aiming to quickly disentangle himself from her clinginess. This situation was difficult to explain and caused him the biggest headache. William Miller pleaded with her while gently prying her plump hands off, careful not to tear them and hurt her. If you teach me, you can have anything you want, she purred seductively. What? William Miller genuinely hadn't heard clearly, not because he was moved. Anything you want, I can give you, money, or even, myself. Her face remained pressed against his back, but it didn't hinder her speech. Miss, you've misunderstood. I don't need anything, I have a job. Please have some self-respect. I'm leaving. William Miller said, again trying to remove her hands, but this time with a bit more force. No, no. Don't. She desperately clung on. He felt like she only had 2 arms and 2 hands, yet they were like an octopus's 8 tentacles, all clinging tightly to him, and slightly sticky. Good heavens, it was terrifying. Get off me. William Miller nearly lost his temper. William Miller finally managed to detach the L.T.D, clinging to him like an octopus, and ran towards the beach. You've been wronged. Peter Fuller sneered. Wronged indeed. She was harassing me. How can Sophia Mason be like Zhu Beiji, a robber crying foul? William Miller frowned, chuckling bitterly. Good grief. What rotten luck. Who'd believe you? Peter Fuller's face turned icy. Captain, you have to believe me. William Miller was reluctant to lose this hard-earned job, thinking there was still room for negotiation. It's no use even if I do believe you. If this place won't keep me, another will. William Miller, ever resilient, quickly regained his cheerfulness, whistling as he strolled out of Peter Fuller's office. Peter Fuller watched William Miller's retreating figure. How could this man be so optimistic, so readily letting go? Admirable. Admirable. Truly admirable. It was because he had wronged him, dismissing him against his conscience. Taking someone's money and doing their bidding. William Miller, I had no other choice, please forgive me. Peter Fuller said silently to himself. Hashtag chapter 22 I just showed off a little bit of my skill, please vote. Please collect. Boom. Crash. Boom. Crash. Earth-shattering, ear-splitting booms. Whoosh. 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 The sound of rain and wind, intertwined. Thick black clouds, a pitch-black sky, as dark as ink, where one couldn't see their own hand. Suddenly, a few streaks of blinding light flashed, making it impossible to keep one's eyes open, as if one's head might explode. Outside the window, thunder rumbled and lightning flashed, a storm raged, tree branches reached out like claws, swaying wildly. Crash. Boom. Crash. Boom. Lightning pierced through the window of a dilapidated tiled house, illuminating a simple, ordinary bed where William Miller lay quietly. The house was pitch black, so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. The lightning flashed, outlining his form on the bed. William Miller abruptly sat up. The lightning flashed across his startled face, then vanished, then illuminated his face again, then vanished, repeating the cycle. William Miller rubbed his eyes, touched his nose, then his face, and looked up, stunned. A look of astonishment spread across his face as he ripped off the drab gray sheet covering him and jumped out of bed. Clad only in his shorts, practically naked, he grabbed the trousers and t-shirt tossed by the headboard, intending to dress. William Miller suddenly froze, then took off his trousers and t-shirt, slowly placing them on the edge of the bed, slowly returning to the bed, slowly lying down. A scene by the seashore flashed through his mind. Rows and rows of milky white buoys intertwined with dark green fishing nets. On the bustling beach, waves surged forward like a charging army, the shore vibrant with crashing white foam. Suddenly, the wind picked up at sea, waves swelled, and the fierce surge tore the buoys and fishing nets apart, scattering them everywhere. William Miller tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. Suddenly, he lay still, his smooth face hardening, something like fire flickering in his eyes, like an enraged beast, eyes blazing green, face full of resentment. Bam! William Miller sprang out of bed, looking around as if searching for something. Finally, he pulled it out from behind a yellowed, much-washed pillow. "Damn fatty, it's all your fault," he cursed. "I'll beat you to death." After cursing, William Miller punched the pillow, then cursed again, clenching his fist and punching it again. "Damn fatty, I'll beat you to death. Beat you to death. Beat you to death." William Miller cursed and punched the pillow, cursing faster and hitting harder. Still not satisfied, William Miller picked up the pillow and threw it on the floor, then, like a shadow, jumped out of bed with a thud, picked up the pillow, and threw it down again, still muttering the same curses. After throwing the pillow dozens of times, William Miller still wasn't appeased. He raised his long leg and stomped down hard. "Damn fatty, stomp you to death, stomp you to death." William Miller continued stomping. Bam! William Miller flung the pillow away. Now, the lightning had stopped flashing, the thunder had ceased rumbling, and the drumming of the rain gradually subsided. William Miller lay still in bed. William Miller closed his eyes dreamily, gradually drifting off to sleep. William Miller was asleep again, now snoring like thunder, sleeping soundly. Ring ring. William Miller's phone suddenly rang. He sleepily opened his eyes, patted his large ears. Suddenly startled, he reached for the phone. "Hello." William Miller mumbled, his voice neither loud nor soft, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "William Miller. You gotta help me." Emily Grant's voice, dripping with sweetness, pleaded from the other end of the line. "Hold on. Hold on. Easy does it, tell me slowly," William Miller soothed her. "William Miller, it's hard to explain over the phone," Emily Grant's voice, clear as a bell, insisted. "All right, I'm on my way." William Miller hung up, his morning routine suddenly accelerated, a whirlwind of brushing and splashing. He hopped onto his electric scooter parked in the yard and zipped towards the commune office. The sun, a fiery orb, hung high in the clear blue sky, the rain having ceased, leaving behind a vibrant red afterglow. Dewdrops shimmered and danced on the emerald rice stalks. Sleek, black-striped gobies frolicked in the narrow irrigation ditches. Startled by his approach, brightly colored frogs leaped with a plop, plop from the road into the small river and rice paddies flanking it. From a distance, William Miller saw a large crowd gathered in front of the commune office's glass doors. 40, maybe 50 villagers, young and old, their faces a mix of expressions, but all tinged with anger and agitation. What's going on in the village? William Miller wondered, surprised. Everyone, please calm down. Listen to me. Let me explain. Emily Grant, her face pale and drawn, raised her hands in a calming gesture. Her voice was soft, even if we bring in 10 technicians, we can't fix everything in one day. Please be understanding, give us a few more days, okay? No way. You officials usually just sit around doing nothing, how could you let the power lines get so messed up that we suffer losses? Why weren't other villages hit by lightning? You want to shirk responsibility, don't even think about it. Out of respect for the new Deputy Director Grant, we won't interfere. We want to talk to Director Danielson. When there's no problem, he acts all high and mighty, but when something happens, he hides like a turtle. A middle-aged man with a sallow complexion, a handlebar mustache, and hawk-like eyes spat out. Seems like these villagers aren't messing around. William Miller thought to himself. What's going on, Deputy Director Grant? William Miller squeezed through the crowd, reaching her, and asked with a wink. William Miller, you don't know. Last night, a powerful thunderstorm knocked out a power line, damaging electrical appliances in nearly 100 households along this route. Emily Grant whispered to him. Oh. Something like that happened. William Miller stared at Emily Grant's worried face. Where's your director Danielson? He whispered again. He's hiding. Emily Grant's voice was barely audible. Then, raising her voice, she addressed the crowd, everyone, Director Danielson, he went to a meeting at the district office early this morning. I'm fully in charge of this matter. I know you're all reasonable people, please give me a few more days, 5 days, okay? No way. No way. 3 days, then. Emily Grant bargained like a merchant in the marketplace. No way. No way. 1 day is enough. William Miller suddenly declared, his stance unclear, his motives a mystery. William Miller, are you putting on a Journey to the West show? Is this your delaying tactic? Or are you just showing off? Emily Grant glared at him, a mixture of amusement and bewilderment in her eyes. Are you crazy, William Miller? No. No. I'm not crazy. I'm perfectly lucid, more lucid than ever. William Miller smirked, giving her shoulder a friendly pat. Emily, don't you worry. Emily Grant sensed William Miller wasn't joking, but she still looked at his confident face with a mixture of belief and doubt. William Miller replied, then smiled at her again. All right then. Emily Grant, as if swallowing a calming pill, smiled and asked, You're taking care of all this? Of course, no problem. William Miller said confidently. Wait a minute. I'll be right back. Why are you looking at me like that, as if I'm about to run off? William Miller cheerfully grabbed his repair tools from home, screwdrivers, soldering iron, multimeter, etc., and headed to the commune office, smiling. The commune office, right? Let's fix it right here. William Miller turned to the villagers and said, Everyone, listen up. Please bring your TVs and such up to the second-floor meeting room, and leave the electric bikes at the gate downstairs. I guarantee you'll all be watching TV tonight, so don't rush. I'll fix the electric bikes first so everyone can get to work and their errands. How's that sound? Sounds good, sounds good. With William Miller taking charge and organizing everything, the villagers naturally had no objections and readily agreed. William Miller, your technical skills are impressive, and your organizational abilities are quite strong too. Emily Grant looked at William Miller with a smile, as if it were a reward for him. That goes without saying. Back in college, William Miller wasn't modest at all, vice president of the student union, head of the sports department, class president, and all that, he trailed off, swallowing the rest of the sentence. Best not to mention that little-known past, he thought to himself. Such a waste. What a waste. Emily Grant sighed regretfully, then gave him a captivating, heart-stirring smile. William Miller started repairing the electric bikes right there in front of everyone at the main gate downstairs. Emily Grant stuck to his side like glue. Deputy Director Grant. William Miller said without looking up, focused on his work. Don't mind me. Do what you need to do. Just go about your business. This is my only important business today. Emily Grant said. Oh. William Miller feigned surprise. Right now, the focus is on putting people first, creating a harmonious society. Working for the people isn't just empty talk, it requires practical action. Emily Grant smiled, speaking formally. Heh. Emily, is that all there is to it? Or do you have some other ulterior motive? William Miller teased Emily Grant while busying himself with his work. What ulterior motive could I possibly have? Emily Grant was clearly unaware of William Miller's cunning scheme. For example, you might want to steal my techniques. William Miller said. As he spoke, he fitted a piece of casing onto an electric bike and then moved on to another one. No need to be sneaky about it. If I want to learn, I can just formally become your apprentice. I wonder if the great master would accept me as his disciple. Emily Grant, sensing progress, was extremely cheerful. I'd be delighted. But you're not that foolish, Deputy Director Grant. All right then, Master, please accept this disciple's bow. Emily Grant, mimicking the customs of the martial world, clasped her hands and spoke seriously, then humbly asked, "But what if I can't learn, Master?" "If you want to be good, you have to sleep with your master." William Miller said with a straight face. "Ugh, you pervert. You big, perverted master." Emily Grant scolded, her face suddenly flushing, making her look even more charming. Ha ha ha. Seeing Emily Grant blush, William Miller laughed heartily while fixing the vehicle. "William Miller, you haven't rested for a long time. Are you tired?" Emily Grant caringly asked William Miller. Chapter 23 Ambiguity in the Commune People's Committee, vote please. "Not tired," William Miller said slyly. "Why?" Emily Grant innocently didn't know it was William Miller's trick. Man and woman together, work is not tiring. William Miller, as expected, spoke with suggestive teasing. "William Miller, you're not being serious at all, the more you talk, the more nonsense you spout." Emily Grant rolled her eyes and scolded, but her face was full of smiles, clearly very happy. "Done." William Miller stood up straight, wiping the sweat from his forehead, and said cheerfully. In less than a morning, 8 electric vehicles were repaired. But William Miller knew very well that 3 of them were slipped in for repairs. Vehicles damaged by lightning were different from normally broken vehicles. These things couldn't escape his expert eyes, he just didn't want to say anything, just let these people benefit. Each electric vehicle repaired by William Miller left the Commune People's Committee one after another. Seeing the pleasant sight, Emily Grant couldn't help but smile, her beautiful face flushed with excitement. At this time, William Miller was repairing a television in the small meeting room on the 2nd floor, Emily Grant still clinging to his side, like 2 peas in a pod. "Look up." Emily Grant ordered William Miller, seeing him obediently raise his head. She used a fresh towel to gently wipe away the beads of sweat on his face. "Open your mouth." Emily Grant slowly poured mineral water into William Miller's mouth, then gently wiped his lips with her small hand. Slow down, dear," Emily Grant said. "Slow down. Do you want me to wait until who knows when?" William Miller continued to work diligently, without even looking up. "Why are you working like you're in a battle?" Emily Grant said. "A battle? I don't even think it's fast enough." "Finish early, rest early," William Miller said. "Folks, the TVs, telephones, cell phones, damaged by lightning have been repaired. Everyone can come to the village to pick them up. Folks." Emily Grant, in the village's broadcasting room, spoke into the microphone, repeating the announcement 3 times. "Where's the restroom?" William Miller asked as he entered, seeing Emily Grant cheerfully exiting the broadcasting room. "Over there." "Are you all done?" Emily Grant pointed with her slender finger, then asked him again, and hurried out after speaking. "Done. All done." William Miller nodded to Emily Grant and entered the accounting room, next to which was the restroom, with a sign for men outside. William Miller slowly wiped the sweat from his body. Today was especially muggy, it had rained 3 times already, and there would probably be another thunderstorm later. The small meeting room in the village didn't have air conditioning, making it even hotter. After seeing off the villagers who came to retrieve their electronics, Emily Grant also cheerfully entered the restroom. This restroom was next to the one William Miller had just entered. After stepping out, Emily Grant closed the door. She took off her dress, slid down her panties, having drunk quite a bit of water this morning and with no time to pee, she was dying to go. Sitting on the pristine white toilet, she released a torrent of urine. At this time, William Miller was washing his hair, rinsing his hands, and looking in the mirror, smoothing his bangs. Hearing a strange noise from the partition, William Miller's hands, which were smoothing his hair, suddenly stopped. His large ears perked up, and a sly smile appeared on his face. At this moment, with this scene, William Miller guessed something. Who was in the next bathroom stall? Of course, it was her. The image of Emily Grant appeared in his mind, her full, high breasts, her curvy, seductive buttocks. William Miller suddenly swelled up, uncomfortable in his crotch, almost unable to hold back. Oh, even just a little touch would be nice. Suddenly, his bathroom stall flashed with a few rays of light, and the bathroom door slowly opened. William Miller's eyes lit up. Emily Grant stood outside the door, smiling. "William, you're still here?" "Yeah." William Miller's heart and eyes jumped at the same time. He instinctively adjusted his clothes, turned around, and strode forward a few steps. He looked at Emily Grant, his probing gaze wandering between her full breasts and lower body. The idea of rushing forward and hugging Emily Grant tightly suddenly popped into William Miller's head. He had bad intentions, his eyes glued to that part of her body. "Thank you so much today," Emily Grant said, blushing. "You're welcome," William Miller said modestly, but a wicked thought suddenly flashed through his mind, giving rise to a dark intention. "Really, Emily? If you want to thank me, how will you thank me?" At this point, William Miller had somewhat controlled his intense excitement, and his eyes had lost some of their animalistic glint. "Tell me, how should I thank you?" Emily Grant blinked and said. "I don't know. If you don't agree, I'll lose face." William Miller first chose a way out for himself. "You've helped me with a big thing, no. You've helped the whole village with a big thing. However you want to be thanked, I agree," Emily Grant said generously. "You're so generous, it makes me shy." William Miller began his ploy. "It's okay." Emily Grant smiled and said. "Let me accept your thanks with a hug, okay?" William Miller said in a refined tone. "Oh." Emily Grant was taken aback. She really wasn't prepared for this, it was too sudden. But she still opened her arms warmly. His eyes flashing, William Miller was overjoyed. He didn't expect her to be so open. Like an eagle spreading its wings, he opened his arms wide. A soft mm seemed to emanate from Emily Grant's throat. Then, she threw herself into William Miller's broad embrace, resting her head on his solid, earth-like shoulder, her breath fragrant as orchids. She whispered, "William Miller, is this okay?" "Yes, yes, yes." William Miller was so excited he could barely speak, his voice choked. He had originally intended just a symbolic hug, thinking it might relieve the frustration in his heart, but this embrace caused his feelings to erupt like a volcano. William Miller couldn't help but kiss her red lips. Emily Grant initially had the same thought as William Miller, just a hug and that's it. But nestled in his gentle, broad embrace, she didn't want to leave. Moreover, Emily Grant's heart was stirred, this was the result of days and months of accumulated feelings. She accepted his kiss. And so, they kissed passionately. Lost in the kiss, William Miller, overcome with desire, reached inside Emily Grant's clothes, lifting her shirt from behind and caressing her exquisite backside. The touch, the kiss, ignited an untamed fire within him. Driven by primal urges, he felt consumed, yearning to quench the burning need. With a struggle, he reached behind Emily Grant and, with considerable effort, unclasped her bra. Emily Grant distinctly felt the release of pressure from her bra, a shiver instinctively running through her. A soft moan escaped her lips. She knew what William Miller was doing, yet she didn't resist, her mind a whirl of fragmented thoughts. Her senses blurred, her body went limp, melting like soft candy. His hands explored her back and chest as his lips trailed from hers, down her cheek, to her neck and collarbone. Her head tilted back, her gaze unfocused on the ceiling, a hazy white expanse filling her vision. William Miller's head now rested between her breasts, his cheek nuzzling against her. William Miller and Emily Grant were standing by the sink when he suddenly lifted her onto the counter, his hands moving to her waist, intending to remove her skirt. "Director Grant. Director Grant, are you there?" A man's voice boomed from the hallway outside the restroom in the commune office building, growing louder with each call. "William, I'll go out first, then you follow." Emily Grant pushed William Miller away, hurriedly fastening her clothes and smoothing her hair in the mirror. Despite her flushed face, she maintained a calm composure as she spoke. William Miller, on the other hand, was slightly dazed and unsure of what to do. This was, after all, a first for him. He didn't even see how Emily Grant managed to slip out. A moment later, William Miller heard Jack Turner's voice. "That pig-headed fool," he thought, "what the hell is he doing here looking for Emily Grant? What's he up to?" Forgetting Emily Grant's instructions, William Miller pulled open the restroom door and stepped out. "William Miller, what are you doing in there?" Hearing the heavy footsteps, Jack Turner, who was talking to Emily Grant, glared at William Miller with a mixture of shock, jealousy, and resentment. He looked at William Miller with open hostility, then, regaining his composure, turned to Emily Grant with a strange expression, as if he'd just seen an alien. "What are you doing in there?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. "This is the village council. Jack Turner, if you can be here, why can't he?" Emily Grant said with a charming smile. "This is a serious workplace, you can't just wander around." Jack Turner said obtusely. "Jack Turner, if it's such a serious workplace, why are you wandering around?" William Miller retorted with a cold laugh. I have important matters to discuss with Deputy Director Grant," Jack Turner declared pompously. "I also have important matters, to help the village council, isn't that right?" William Miller asked Emily Grant directly. "That's right. I invited him," Emily Grant stated firmly. "William Miller, you bastard, you keep crossing me, I won't let you get away with it." "Humph, just you wait." Jack Turner's face darkened, turning a shade of purplish black. With that, he stood up, turned, and stormed off. Hey, Jack Turner, why are you leaving? Don't you have something important to do?" Emily Grant saw William Miller provoking Jack Turner and hurriedly grabbed him, saying, "No way. No way." Jack Turner said this as he walked down the hallway. "The sky wants to rain, mother wants to marry off her daughter, whatever." William Miller said gleefully. "Oh, you." Emily Grant glared at William Miller. "What about me?" William Miller grinned, feigning a question. "I told you not to go out there, and you still did." Emily Grant said coquettishly. "Can we still, you know?" William Miller said ingratiatingly. "No way." Emily Grant was exasperated. This guy showed up at the worst possible time. William Miller hated Jack Turner to the core and wanted to kill him. Such a good thing, ruined by him. Hashtag Chapter 24, The Village Official's Ex-Boyfriend, Vote Please. William Miller wore his usual outfit, indigo jeans, a black t-shirt, and blue and white hiking shoes. The difference was that he sported black sunglasses on his t-shirt and had styled his hair in a Korean explosion style. William Miller looked free-spirited, unrestrained, handsome, and incredibly cool. "Barber, give me a haircut." That day, as soon as he received Emily Grant's call, William Miller put down his phone, drove his electric scooter to town, strode into a barbershop, and said directly to the owner. "Sir, what kind of haircut would you like?" The barber smiled. Having a customer was good, big or small, as long as there was a customer. "The Korean explosion style." William Miller said seriously, although he found it amusing himself and could hardly contain his laughter. Is that the most popular style right now? Yes, I want that one. William Miller suddenly became enthusiastic and said cheerfully. I'm sorry, sir. We've never done that style before. The barber said apologetically with a smile. No problem, I brought a picture. William Miller said with a bright smile, take a look. You have a picture. Then it's fine. The barber said happily. It seemed that William Miller had come prepared. Good heavens, a small town is still a small town, not like a big city, unable to keep up with the ever-changing times, William Miller sighed inwardly. It's a good thing I'm quick-tempered and prepared beforehand, otherwise, this trip would have been a wasted journey, a false alarm. This old boy is pretty clever. William Miller thought smugly. Why he had to follow the fashion trends, even he couldn't explain clearly. With a touch of makeup, she was the epitome of a great beauty. Emily Grant carried her elegant handbag, one arm linked with William Miller's, flashing a charming smile. She swayed her graceful figure, taking light steps as she strolled with the handsome and dashing William Miller. Evening at the beach bar. As the decorative lights came on, the colorful floral lights and neon lights shimmered, filling the space with vibrant colors. Although there was no live band yet, the music playing had a lively rhythm and a melodious, gentle tune, exuding warmth and romance. It created an atmosphere that was elegant, tranquil, and beautiful all at once. William Miller escorted Emily Grant casually towards a table in the bar. Their intertwined figures, to onlookers, certainly appeared to be a pair of deeply enamored lovers. At a table, a young man sat waiting tensely. Seeing William Miller leading Emily Grant over, his eyes lit up, and he quickly rose to greet them. Emily Grant, Emily. The young man's voice almost cracked with emotion as he called out Emily Grant's name, clearly agitated, as if reunited with his wife after a near-death experience. Well. Let me introduce you to. Emily Grant smiled, appearing incredibly calm. She didn't respond to the young man's call, only glancing at him before turning to William Miller, who was shaking his bushy hair, and smilingly made the introduction. William Miller tossed his bushy hair again, gave the young man a sideways glance, and nodded, a strange sound emanating from his throat. William Miller, this is my university classmate, Mr. Richard Lee. Emily Grant gestured towards Richard Lee, who had just hurried over from the table, and cheerfully addressed William Miller. William Miller abruptly donned his sunglasses in a bizarre manner, then extended his hand generously, his face impassive as he said, Mr. Lee, I've long admired you. A pleasure. A pleasure. The pleasure's all mine. Richard Lee, taken aback by William Miller's eccentric behavior, offered a perfunctory handshake. Richard Lee, this is my official boyfriend, William Miller, Mr. Miller. The corner of Emily Grant's mouth twitched upwards as she made the introduction cheerfully. Having said that, Emily Grant leaned her head against William Miller's solid shoulder, her proud and beautiful face nestled against him like an obedient girl. Richard Lee felt a sting of jealousy, his mouth twitching in a grimace of pain. However, realizing his lapse in composure, he gradually regained his spirits, extending his hand politely and saying, Hello. Hello. William Miller, Mr. Miller. Hello, hello. William Miller responded coldly, raising his hand. As Richard Lee reached out to shake it, William Miller abruptly clenched his hand into a fist, a small nail file magically appearing in his hand. He meticulously filed his nails, ignoring Richard Lee with an air of disdain. After diligently filing his nails, William Miller held his hand up to the light, his 5 fingers like dried reddish radishes, and gently blew on them as if to remove dust. William Miller, your arrogant disregard for others is incredibly presumptuous and haughty. Damn it! Richard Lee cursed William Miller inwardly. Emily, Mr. Miller, please have a seat. Richard Lee awkwardly retracted his hand, thinking, why bother with this arrogant fellow? It would only compromise his own composure. He quickly regained his calm, offering a smile and a graceful, please, gesture with the hand he had just withdrawn. William Miller smirked coldly, tossed his hair, strode forward to pull out a chair, brushed his hand across the seat, and then turned to Emily Grant with a flirtatious smile. Emily Grant smiled proudly and slowly knelt down, sitting gracefully. After Emily Grant was seated, William Miller took the chair beside her. He waited for Richard Lee to sit down before unfolding a pristine white napkin and placing it on Emily Grant's lap. Only when Emily Grant smiled her thanks did he respond with a slight nod and a smile. Service, Richard Lee, noticing the close interaction between William Miller and Emily Grant, frowned, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes, but still snapped his fingers towards the counter. Sir, the waiter stood respectfully before Richard Lee. We'll have XO, Richard Lee declared, his voice laced with newfound confidence. Now he had money, he had a card, and the card had money. No. Bored with XO. Get West River Grand, William Miller stated flatly, his face impassive. Fine. West River Grand it is, Richard Lee maintained his smile. And a bottle of French red wine. No, she's tired of that too. Golden Dew, William Miller countered again. All right, we'll go with Mr. Lee. Golden Dew rice wine. Do you have Tsingtao beer? No. Putoa mountain beer. And some stir-fries. Lobster, no, had enough of that. Soft-shelled turtle stew. Watching William Miller constantly contradict Richard Lee, Emily Grant struggled to contain her laughter, her lips pressed together, a barely audible, hee-hee, escaping. Which university did Mr. Lee graduate from? Richard Lee asked, fixing William Miller with a contemptuous stare that lingered for half a minute. Sorry. This time I'll make you look good. William Miller. Make you lose face in front of Emily Grant, Richard Lee thought to himself. Heh heh, William Miller chuckled softly, then said casually, if Zhejiang University counts as a title, then that. Can't underestimate this guy. Zhejiang University is globally renowned, a world-class institution, Richard Lee thought. Hashtag chapter 25 bragging is my talent, please vote. However, Mr. Lee, I'm a ZE, William Miller rubbed his head with a sly grin, his words cryptic. ZE. Puzzling. What does that mean? I don't understand, Richard Lee faltered, pondering the words. Damn, the chance to put you down has finally arrived, he thought. It means I dropped out before graduating, William Miller said with a wide grin. Ha, so it's ZE, is it? Richard Lee's face turned icy, feigning disdain. This guy's got some nerve, not a hint of embarrassment, he thought, then flashed a smile at Emily Grant. Right, ZE, William Miller feigned nonchalance, thinking, damn it. You think I don't understand? If I did, I'd rather slap myself to death. Do tell me more, Richard Lee pressed, eager to further humiliate William Miller. With that, Richard Lee pointedly glanced at Emily Grant, his eyes as if to say, look who you're associating with. A college dropout with poor spelling. What a joke. I got bored before the end of the second semester of freshman year. One stormy night, with thunder and lightning crashing, I seized the opportunity to escape from school and fled abroad, roaming here and there, only returning to my homeland this year. William Miller leaned back in his chair, flipping his hair, thumb twitching, boasting incessantly. One could say it's been a life of ups and downs, tinged with a touch of legend. A graduate of the School of Hard Knocks, Mr. Miller is self-taught. Respectable, truly admirable. Richard Lee's face was a mask of mockery, his words dripping with sarcasm as he eagerly watched Emily Grant's reaction. Emily Grant smiled gracefully, not surprised, nor finding it strange. She knew William Miller too well, he was putting on an act, playing the fool. William Miller maintained his unfazed expression, brazenly clasping his hands and saying, Mr. Lee, you flatter me, you flatter me. I'm not as outstanding as you say. Currently, may I ask what Mr. Miller does for a living? Freelance. William Miller tossed his hair, gave a thumbs up, and said in a nonchalant tone. Oh. Freelance writing. Writing online novels pays quite well these days. There's an author named I Want a Beautiful Woman, who earns 2 million yuan annually. Richard Lee clearly knew this already, but he asked anyway, wanting to embarrass William Miller. Someone like him, who hadn't even warmed his seat, how could he be a writer? Ouch! William Miller slapped Richard Lee hard on the shoulder, making him wince, and said indifferently, I'm not as talented as you. You're the great Tang Bohu, I just do a little bit of trading. Oh. Richard Lee glanced coldly at William Miller, then at Emily Grant, wanting to hear more of what William Miller had to say. Tell me, what kind of small-time trading? Richard Lee said coldly. I occasionally travel around Southeast Asia, places like Thailand, Burma, Laos, and areas like Yunnan in our country. William Miller tossed his hair, gave a thumbs up, his face serious and devoid of any smile, speaking nonsense. You go to the Golden Triangle? To do what? Richard Lee's heart skipped a beat, his hair stood on end, his face paled, and his eyes widened in astonishment. This guy was truly audacious. That's right. You're very clever, you guessed correctly. Sometimes I also travel around Middle Eastern countries like Bahrain, Jordan, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan. Those are areas in constant conflict, aren't they? Richard Lee's eyes widened. Even further in utter astonishment. Indeed. You're truly erudite. William Miller spouted more nonsense, feigning modesty and reservation. My business is small, but each trip can take a few years, more than 10 years, even half a lifetime is no problem. Good heavens. William Miller, this guy deals in drugs and weapons? Upon hearing this, Richard Lee's jaw dropped, goosebumps erupted on his skin, a chill ran down his spine, and he stared at William Miller in horror, then glanced at Emily Grant strangely. Seeing Emily Grant's cheerful smile, he was even more astonished. Come on. Don't just stand there dumbfounded. Drink. Drink. William Miller chuckled coldly and indifferently, enthusiastically urging Richard Lee, Mr. Lee, I'll finish my glass first. All right, let's drink, let's drink. Richard Lee regained his composure, glanced at William Miller, and hastily said, I'll finish mine too. I'm going to the restroom for a moment. Emily Grant spoke to William Miller in a careful tone, as if asking permission from a superior, while also politely nodding to Richard Lee. Go ahead. Beautiful. William Miller finally cracked a smile, patted her shoulder affectionately, waved his hand dismissively, and put on a magnanimous air. Richard Lee told William Miller, I'm going to the restroom for a bit, and left as well. As you wish. William Miller said indifferently. Inwardly, he thought, I know what you're up to, you want to tell Emily Grant to stay away from me, the beach bar restroom. How could you befriend someone like William Miller, Emily? He's a thief, a scoundrel, a social misfit, Richard Lee said to Emily Grant as soon as he entered the restroom and saw her washing her hands at the sink. He pretended to wash his hands as he spoke. I like it. Emily Grant said, checking her reflection in the mirror, admiring her bright, lively face that shone as much as the glass itself. Are you trying to drive me insane? Richard Lee muttered, seemingly unable to look directly at Emily Grant, his tone suggesting a close, almost familial relationship. We're not involved anymore, why would I bother? Emily Grant replied nonchalantly. Emily, don't you know William Miller is involved in illegal activities, drug and arms trafficking? Richard Lee whispered, his voice a mix of secrecy and concern. So what if I do? Emily Grant responded with indifference, even a hint of coldness. Huh? You knew? Richard Lee was utterly astonished. Huh, what? Like it's some earth-shattering news. Emily Grant scoffed. Getting mixed up in that stuff is a death sentence. Richard Lee's face paled, his expression grim as he warned Emily Grant. "I like it." Emily Grant repeated, then gracefully exited the restroom. "You're crazy." Richard Lee's warning echoed after her. William Miller tossed his hair back dramatically, gave a thumbs up, and slowly asked, "Mr. Lee, where do you work?" "Me?" Richard Lee chuckled smugly, "I earn my keep at a company." Too much humility is just another form of arrogance. You must be a high-level white-collar worker, right? William Miller looked directly at Richard Lee, his gaze no longer as icy as before, at least devoid of hostility. "That's right. You could say that." Richard Lee replied confidently with a self-satisfied grin. "It seems Mr. Miller is quite the judge of character." Very good, very good." William Miller scratched his head, paused thoughtfully, then spoke with the tone of a seasoned veteran, "As a high-level white-collar worker, do you find yourself on uneven high ground, or are you comfortably at ease?" "Uneven high ground or comfortably at ease, I'm afraid neither is quite right. Let's just say, I'm doing all right. Managing to put food on the table and clothes on my back." Richard Lee smiled confidently, looking quite dashing and unrestrained. "Those of you who work for the man, it's truly not easy. You face an unpredictable business environment, while also enduring pressure from superiors, competition from colleagues and subordinates, the company's business strategies." William Miller went on at length. "The survival pressure and precarious situations you face are definitely not something you can overcome with just hard work and diligence, because every day new competitors constantly emerge around you. Furthermore, you'll face increasingly fierce market competition, shrinking profits, and pressure not just from the outside but also from your own sense of insecurity. My words are definitely not meant to scare you." Yes, Richard Lee agreed, thinking to himself, "Damn, this William Miller kid has some talent, he speaks quite eloquently." William Miller's few words left the prestigious university-educated senior manager speechless, only able to nod repeatedly. High-level white-collar workers may appear glamorous on the surface, but in reality, there are unspoken difficulties. Take the most practical economic condition as an example. Buying a big house, and still having to pay the mortgage. Mr. Lee, I suppose this problem doesn't exist for you, does it? William Miller tossed his hair back dramatically, smirked, and asked with feigned reservation. It made sense, he was asking her about happiness while he himself didn't even have a decent dog house. William Miller almost chuckled, thinking, the joys of poverty, him. He doesn't have that problem. Lucky dog, caught the bouquet, became the chairman's prized son-in-law. Living the high life in a luxury villa. Emily Grant, radiantly beautiful, replied to William Miller with a seductive laugh. The gleam in her eyes suggested a certain relish in her words. "Don't air dirty laundry in public, Emily. You." Richard Lee stammered, his face a mask of discomfort. "Air dirty laundry. Humph, this is your honor. How is this airing dirty laundry? I'm praising you." Ha, a joke. How laughable. I could die laughing. Emily Grant's face twisted with a flash of jealousy, tears welling in her beautiful eyes, her full breasts heaving, her perfect curves undulating like waves. Seeing Emily Grant's tears of wronged, William Miller pulled out some tissues and offered them to her. His hand hovered in midair. #### Chapter 26, Better to Tear Down a Temple, Vote Please. Because Emily Grant didn't take the tissues William Miller offered. Instead, she turned her tear-streaked face towards him. William Miller chuckled and gently wiped Emily Grant's eyes and face, then pulled out more tissues and continued dabbing. William Miller repeated the action with practiced care. He seemed intent on provoking Richard Lee, and indeed, Richard Lee, witnessing this scene, looked ashen and utterly dejected, as if his heart were being sliced. "Emily, you've got it all wrong. Not that I blame you. You see, I moved out of Lam Lan's place ages ago, and I don't work at her father's listed company anymore. I've moved on to a different one." Richard Lee's face was heavy as he spoke, but as he continued, his expression brightened, like the sun breaking through dark clouds. Emily Grant looked at Richard Lee's brightening face with suspicion, her coldness gradually thawing into warmth, her heart softening somewhat. "Emily, you know Lam Lan's princess-like temper, I finally couldn't take it anymore." "Oh, man," Richard Lee sighed heavily, his mood darkening again. He continued slowly, "We dated for 3 years in college, and if it weren't for Lam Lan interfering, we would have. Oh, God. You know what she's like. She's the type who never gives up until she gets what she wants, relentlessly persistent. She'll do anything to get her way, losing all reason. At first, I firmly rejected her, but she resorted to extreme measures, first overdosing on sleeping pills, then slitting her wrists, to threaten me. To save her life, I succumbed to her coercion. Did you back off out of pity for her?" Of course, the material temptations of being with her were also a significant factor. She could use her father's influence to help me advance my career. But I've had enough of her awful temper. You have no idea what I went through after graduation. Happiness and joy were completely foreign concepts to me. I was miserable. Truly. I was nothing more than her punching bag, or rather, her slave. I had to revolve around her 24/7, coaxing, pampering, keeping her happy, always by her side. I'm sick of it, I've had enough. I'd rather have no money, no status, no title, I just want to be an ordinary person. Finally, my chance came. A handsome newcomer at the company took notice of her, pursuing her openly and secretly. Unable to withstand his intense advances, she eventually changed her heart. This truly made him withdraw completely, and not long after, he and she finalized their divorce. Despite the chairman and company leader's attempts to retain him, he submitted his resignation. Coincidentally, another company needed someone like him and offered him a suitable position. The precious daughter of the listed company's boss has taken a shine to him again. Emily Grant's heart was in turmoil, feeling very uncomfortable, her tone slightly sour. "Emily, what kind of person do you take me for? Back then, I was forced, I had no choice. My heart only belongs to you." Richard Lee chuckled bitterly, staring intently at Emily Grant, as if he couldn't get enough of her. It seems Mr. Lee is still the modern-day Jason Benedict. William Miller coldly mocked, but he no longer pretended to stroke his hair or give a thumbs up. This hot-headed kid, turns out he's not completely heartless. Damn it, this guy can still be taught, rotten wood can still be carved, there's still some basic affection between them, it's just that some heartless person wedged themselves in between. Damn, that rich girl is really something. Should I play matchmaker for them? My mom always said, better to demolish 10 temples than to break up a marriage. During her lifetime, she played matchmaker for so many people. Countless, really. William Miller vigorously rubbed his head and nose, dazed, lost in thought. How can I possibly see you? What kind of person you are, you know best. Emily Grant looked directly at Richard Lee, seeing his large eyes, thick eyebrows, and handsome face, yet etched with pain. Emily, I'm not what you think. I'm not a freeloader. Richard Lee bowed his head in shame, his voice low and pained. I didn't say that. Emily Grant whispered, but a hint of self-reproach could be heard. But, you'll think of me that way. Richard Lee appeared even more distressed. Do you care what I think? Of course. All right. All right. Let bygones be bygones, why bring it up again? William Miller smiled, rising from the table, one hand on his hip, the other holding the wine bottle, filling his glass. He cheerfully said, Mr. Lee, since you've come from afar, I'll offer a toast as the host. This first glass, I'll down it in one go. You do as you please. William Miller tilted his head back and drained his glass in one gulp. This second glass, for my earlier rudeness to Mr. Lee, I'll punish myself. I'll also down it. William Miller again tilted his head back and emptied his glass. This third glass, for my earlier nonsense to Mr. Lee, I'll punish myself again, I'll also down it. No, it's nothing. Richard Lee hurriedly said, appearing rather apologetic. William Miller once again tilted his head back and drained his glass. Waiter, 3 more bottles of West River Grand. Next, I want to punish myself with 3 more glasses. William Miller spoke as he poured the wine, drinking it all in one gulp. William Miller. Emily Grant, seeing William Miller bracing himself on the table as if about to collapse, called out worriedly. I'm fine. William Miller, his face flushed crimson, one hand still on the table, the other waving dismissively, said. Drink up. Drink up. William Miller, seemingly unable to hold his liquor, sat down, a drunken flush rising to his cheeks. I'll down it, Richard, Emily, you two take it easy. Bottoms up. Don't be slackers, drink till you drop. Cough, 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 William Miller coughed lightly between gulps. William Miller, don't drink too much. Emily Grant gently patted William Miller's back, her voice soft and full of concern as she fussed over him. Mr. Lee, please, take your time. Richard Lee, unsure how to advise William Miller, thought to himself that William Miller was acting rather strangely, mysteriously, his demeanor doing a complete 180, like he'd become a different person altogether. A truly odd and perplexing fellow. Not much, I'm fine. William Miller's coughing fit abruptly ceased. He straightened his back, puffed out his chest, and proceeded to down another 18 glasses of West River Grand. William Miller snuck a glance at Richard Lee and Emily Grant, then suddenly slipped, landing with a thud under the table. William Miller struggled to get up, but halfway there, he cast a bleary-eyed glance at Richard Lee and Emily Grant, slipped again with a clatter, and landed back on the floor with a thud. William Miller, are you all right? What happened? Emily Grant bent down, concerned, not knowing why he had fallen. As she spoke, she gently helped him up. I'm not drunk. William Miller plopped back down on the floor, stubbornly insisting on his sobriety. Emily Grant pulled on William Miller's arm, trying to get him back in his chair, but with a crash, she too ended up on the floor. Emily Grant's soft body landed on top of William Miller, a sensation of warmth and smoothness, her face pressed close to his. Richard. Come help. Emily Grant, crouched on the floor, her dark head peeking out from under the table, called out to a bewildered Richard Lee. Mr. Miller is drunk. Perhaps we should take him to a hotel to rest. Richard Lee, helping Emily Grant lift William Miller, asked her tentatively, what do you think? I'm not drunk. I'm not drunk. William Miller, his legs wobbly, looked at them furtively. He seemed about to collapse at any moment, yet his arms swung wildly, and he continued to shout rhythmically. It's the only way. Emily Grant, her beautiful eyes wide, gave Richard Lee a grateful smile. Taking William Miller's arm, she said softly, let's go. Richard Lee supported William Miller's other arm, half carrying, half dragging him along with Emily Grant, the former lovers now united in this task. However, William Miller seemed unwilling to go quietly, bellowing all the way, I'm not drunk. I want to drink more. William Miller rambled drunkenly. William Miller leaned heavily on Richard Lee, putting almost all his weight on him. Suddenly, William Miller opened his eyes and stared intently at Richard Lee's face, blinking meaningfully. A shiver ran down Richard Lee's spine. He quickly turned his head away, his ear now directly next to William Miller's mouth. Kid, damn, you lucky dog, going to Peach Blossom Village and finding your peach blossom. You've got a chance. Kid, grab it. William Miller's voice, barely a whisper, buzzed in Richard Lee's ear. Richard Lee looked at William Miller, a wave of respect washing over him. He realized that while William Miller acted incredibly dissolute on the surface, deep down, he wasn't corrupt at all. He was, in fact, a good man. William Miller winked at Richard Lee. Oh, oh. Richard Lee was immensely grateful, almost on the verge of tears. What's William Miller saying? Emily Grant, puzzled by a mosquito-like buzzing sound that turned out to be William Miller speaking, asked Richard Lee. #### Chapter 27, Unforeseen Incident, vote please. He's saying. Richard Lee wanted to lie, but couldn't think of anything. I want to drink. I want to drink, William Miller suddenly chimed in, yelling after Richard Lee. He's just babbling. Let's go quickly. Richard Lee chuckled inwardly and said. Okay. Emily Grant replied obediently, her demeanor towards Richard Lee noticeably more respectful. Richard Lee and Emily Grant struggled to get William Miller into a hotel room, just 100 meters from the bar, and finally managed to lay him down on the large bed. As Emily Grant reached to take off William Miller's shoes, Richard Lee quickly said, Emily, let me. Let me, and rushed from the other side of the bed to her side. I want to drink, I want to drink. William Miller lay on his back, seemingly very uncomfortable, his head tossing and turning, his limbs twitching and jerking as if 15 buckets of water were rising and falling erratically. He looked more distressed than if he were dying. Let me. Let me. Richard Lee stammered again as he saw Emily Grant about to cover William Miller with a blanket. Seeing Richard Lee approach with the blanket, William Miller suddenly opened his eyes, blinked at him, winked while muttering, I want to drink, then lay still obediently as Richard Lee tucked him in. Gradually, he began to snore, seemingly asleep. Emily, let's go. Richard Lee nodded vigorously at William Miller, then smiled at Emily Grant, saying softly, let's not disturb Mr. Miller anymore, let him rest, shall we? Do what? Emily Grant frowned, looking at William Miller with concern, then suspiciously at Richard Lee. Emily, shall we go for a walk? Richard Lee smiled, gazing longingly at Emily Grant's beautiful face. No. Emily Grant's eyes suddenly dimmed, and she lowered her head, whispering, I want to stay with William Miller. You guys drink with me, drink with me. If you don't drink with me, get out. Get out. All of you. The snoring abruptly stopped. William Miller suddenly threw off the white blanket, glared fiercely at Emily Grant and Richard Lee, pointing at them while ranting. See. Emily, Mr. Miller doesn't like us bothering him. Let's go. Emily. Emily. Richard Lee said anxiously, looking at Emily Grant. You don't mind, do you, William Miller? Emily Grant genuinely wanted to stay alone with the drunken William Miller. You don't mind me being here, do you, William Miller? With that, Emily Grant, like a devoted wife, carefully and tenderly tucked the blanket back around William Miller. However, William Miller, seemingly oblivious, suddenly kicked the blanket off, sat up, and pointed at Emily Grant, ranting like a madman, all of you, get out. Get out. I want peace and quiet. Ha ha ha, being drunk is so great. I can say whatever I want, curse at whoever I want, curse however I want, and no one dares to hate me. How refreshing. William Miller thought to himself, immensely pleased. Look. Emily, Mr. Miller is angry. Richard Lee glanced at William Miller, gestured to him, then turned to advise Emily Grant, Emily, if Mr. Miller is already angry, should we leave? No. Emily Grant seemed to become even more stubborn, saying, I want to stay with William Miller, by his side. As she spoke, she recovered William Miller with the white blanket. Annoying. So damn annoying, get out of here, all of you. Get out. William Miller sat up, pointed at them, and yelled. Emily, look. Look, Mr. Miller is really angry. Richard Lee approached Emily Grant, intimately patted her jade-like shoulder, and reached out to hold her small, white hand. Under Richard Lee's coaxing, Emily Grant slowly stood up, reluctantly left the room, and walked to the door. The sound of footsteps gradually faded away. William Miller poked his head out from under the blanket, saw that the room was empty, immediately threw off the blanket, and sat up. Ha ha! He rubbed his hands together, stretched his legs, and was as happy as a child. Suddenly, William Miller's sharp eyes flashed, he startled, immediately stiffened, fell back onto the bed, and quickly pulled the blanket over his head. Under the blanket, the sound of snoring, co-co, immediately transmitted. Emily Grant pushed the door open and returned, followed by Richard Lee, who was worried sick. "William Miller, are you thirsty? Let me pour you some water." Emily Grant swayed her lovely figure, gently walked to the bedside, and asked William Miller in a soft, gentle voice. William Miller, who had just been lying on his back, immediately turned to his side, ignoring Emily Grant, who was showing him the utmost care, giving her a cold shoulder, and his snoring became louder and louder. William Miller, are you thirsty?" Emily Grant still wouldn't give up, asking in a gentle voice. Emily. Just leave the water there. If Mr. Miller is thirsty, he'll drink it himself. Or, come back and check on him later. Richard Lee whispered to her. Emily Grant blinked her charming eyes with long lashes, seemingly understanding, nodded, and looked up, smiling at Richard Lee. Soon, the hotel room became quiet again. William Miller sprang up like a carp turning over, sitting on the bed, dancing and spinning. However, not long after, with a "vut" sound, he dove under the covers like an eel slipping into water. "William Miller, do you need anything else?" Emily Grant suddenly pushed the door open and entered. William Miller snored like thunder, pretending to sleep under the covers. After everything was quiet again, William Miller emerged from under the white blanket. "Mr. Miller, is there anything we can do for you?" This time, it was a girl in uniform wearing a staff ID who pushed the door open and entered. She softly asked William Miller, who was sleeping soundly under the covers. "No." William Miller said curtly, shaking his head and waving his hand. After the smiling service staff member left, he jumped off the bed and locked the hotel room door. Better to destroy 10 pagodas than to break up a happy marriage. With the great undertaking accomplished, using the phrase, "a heart blooming with rage," to describe William Miller's mood at this moment wouldn't be an exaggeration. People are often like this: when their hearts are at ease and their moods are relaxed, sleepiness comes, and it comes quickly. Before going to sleep, William Miller took a hot bath in the bathroom, wrapped a towel around himself, got into bed naked, and soon began to snore like thunder. After an indeterminate time, a rustling sound emanated from the bed. In his drowsy state, a soft, smooth object brushed against William Miller's body. Instinctively, primal desire surged within him, and he reached out to embrace the smooth, yielding form. Yet, inexplicably, a profound weakness gripped him, leaving him utterly powerless. Furthermore, despite his efforts, William Miller's eyelids felt heavy as lead, refusing to open. Was he experiencing sleep paralysis? His muddled thoughts prevented him from accurately assessing his condition. William Miller felt as though he were bound, completely immobilized. Despite this, his consciousness remained remarkably clear, allowing him to continue to process his thoughts. What was happening? William Miller pondered, suddenly convinced that this was no dream, but rather a vile act perpetrated against him, likely through something slipped into his drink. He distinctly remembered drinking several gulps of water from the glass on his nightstand. The soft, smooth sensation, William Miller realized, originated from a woman's body. Now, the contact had escalated beyond a simple touch, they were embracing. Not him holding her, but her holding him. Who could she be? It wasn't Mary Carter, nor Emily Grant, and certainly not Rose Miles. A wave of indignation washed over William Miller as he recognized this as a sinister plot. I will unravel this conspiracy, I must. His rage subsided, replaced by a steely resolve. I must regain my composure to dismantle this scheme. Empty words are useless. Focusing his energy, William Miller began to cultivate his inner strength, even in his semi-conscious state. This instinctive cultivation of his internal energy was an unconscious reflex, something he had never consciously done before. His spirit calmed, his mind relaxed, regulating his breath, his thoughts, and his body. After an unknown period, a light suddenly illuminated the room. Though unable to open his eyes, like a blind man perceiving no color, William Miller sensed the light through a sharp stinging sensation in his eyes. At that moment, the woman's soft body tightened its embrace. Yet, his earlier desire had completely vanished, his mind no longer preoccupied with it. Inexplicably, William Miller continued his instinctive cultivation, his mind free from distractions. Following a few flickering flashes of light, faint, almost imperceptible scratching sounds filled the air. Moments later, hushed voices murmured, one of which sounded strangely familiar to William Miller, though he couldn't quite place it. He couldn't, and wouldn't, dwell on it. He was at a crucial juncture in his cultivation. Any interruption would render his efforts futile. Boom! William Miller bolted upright, his keen eyes snapping open to face utter darkness. He couldn't even see his own hand in front of his face. His mind was now fully alert, his physical strength restored. A surge of potent energy from within had propelled him awake. Click! Light flooded the room. William Miller's eyes darted around. The bed showed no signs of disturbance. Yet, blinking, his gaze sharp, he touched his head, then looked up in stunned disbelief. He was certain, absolutely certain, that what he had just experienced was no mere dream. Absolutely not. William Miller glanced down at his nether regions, a pristine, untouched landscape. He chuckled coldly, instantly relieved. Grandma's ghost. My fiery temper aside, I've kept myself pure, unblemished. Otherwise, I'd have been screwed big time. That woman's definitely a working girl. No sooner said than done, William Miller dressed quickly and dashed out of the living room. Deep night, dim lights. He looked around. Bloody hell, trouble comes uninvited, while good fortune stays away. These guys are no small fry, they came prepared. Damn, catching them won't be easy. William Miller rubbed his head and nose, looking up in contemplation. The next afternoon, at 3:36, a crisp phone ring startled William Miller from his nap. William Miller picked up. Hello. Oh, Jack Turner. Ha, good. Temple's Treat, I'll be there on time. William Miller spoke a few terse, meaningful words, then hung up with a sharp click. At that moment, Rose Miles, sleeves rolled up, revealing her delicate, fair arms, was gracefully washing clothes in the courtyard when her phone also rang. Rose Miles paused, wiped her hands on her clothes, pulled out a stylish phone, and pressed the answer button. Hello. It's me. Hold on. Rose Miles dashed into William Miller's house, phone in hand, and into his bedroom. William, Jack Turner invited me to dinner. Should I go? Go. Why not? He invited me too. Let's go together, he might have invited Emily Grant as well. It's like a hangmen banquet, we all have to go. William Miller said with a cold laugh. But, what's that sly fox Jack Turner up to? He can't be inviting us to dinner for no reason. Wong the Cruel visiting the chicken coop, no good can come of it. But Rose, don't worry, I'm here. Okay, William, I'll tell him. Hello, Jack Turner, I can go. Is it about the fight you two had last time? Does he want to apologize? Rose Miles asked, beaming. Humph. Is he that nice? Sis, don't overthink it. William Miller rubbed his nose, chuckling. Okay, William, I'll listen to you. Rose Miles smiled sweetly at William Miller and skipped back to her laundry. That evening, at the beach bar, William Miller strolled leisurely around the bar. After a circuit, he suddenly appeared inside. Emily Grant and her ex, Richard Lee, were already seated inside. Richard, seeing William Miller, lit up like he'd met a long-lost friend, a broad smile spreading across his face as he quickly rose to greet him warmly. Chapter 28. Indifferent to the young lady, please vote. Richard pulled William Miller aside, saying gratefully, Mr. Miller, William, thank you. Wait a moment. He quickly removed his wristwatch and offered it respectfully to William Miller. William, I didn't bring anything good with me, but this watch has been with me for years. Consider it a meeting gift. Please accept it. I want to befriend a righteous man like you. William Miller smiled, seemingly not refusing, and took the watch to examine it closely. Oh. A Rolex, quite valuable. Brother, you're a smart man, this is a wise move. But I'm no fool either, you could say I'm quite clever. I accept your friendship. Hands off another man's wife, Emily Grant is here, and I'll take good care of her. Don't you worry. But I can't accept this watch. A gentleman doesn't take what another man cherishes. Alright, stop talking, or I'll really get angry. He said, putting the watch back on Richard's wrist. When William Miller and Richard Lee returned to their seats, Rose Miles and Emily Grant, now thick as thieves, chattered away, their prior animosity and jealousy vanished like smoke. William Miller's smile was bitter, forced, and yet, tragically beautiful. Richard Lee smiled, a sweet, happy smile of something lost and found again. Excellent. Excellent. Mr. Richard Lee is a friend from afar, and Miss Emily Grant, a local official, has greatly assisted our enterprise. This bar will have the honor of hosting you. We also invite Mr. William Miller and Miss Rose Miles to join the feast. Please forgive any inconvenience. Jack Turner said smoothly with a bright smile. But before we begin, I'd like to show you something, a truly magnificent landscape photograph. I guarantee that after seeing it, you'll be delighted, and your meal will be 10,000 times more enjoyable. Having said this, Jack Turner waved his hand triumphantly towards the back, then fixed his gaze on William Miller's face. As if to say, kid, I'll show you what a real storm looks like. I'll show you what true audacity is. This time, I'll make you lose face. However, William Miller, arms crossed, sat upright in his chair, calm and composed, appearing utterly nonchalant. His sharp eyes met Jack Turner's, and he smiled inwardly, Grandma's ghost. Show me what you've got, you little punk. I won't even blink. What's in the camera? Let me see. Let me see. Rose Miles exclaimed. Oh, me too, me too. Emily Grant chimed in. Rose Miles and Emily Grant jostled for the camera, ending up holding it together, admiring the contents, and then gradually giggling. Rose Miles said, well, Jack Turner, there's nothing in here. You called us over to see this? Emily Grant added, Jack Turner, you're so funny. Jack Turner froze, his face flushing with embarrassment. Ha ha ha, William Miller roared with laughter, his voice booming like a bell, filled with amusement. I'm hungry, Jack Turner, let's start the feast. Ha ha ha, you're hilarious, what an appetizer. You drunken, useless good-for-nothings. You can't even handle this simple task. What am I paying you for? Jack Turner raged at his two most competent subordinates, James Fox and John Fox, his hair practically standing on end. Boss, this is truly bizarre. James Fox, looking at Jack Turner's still furious face with a bewildered expression, said in astonishment, we own up to our other failures. But this, boss, you were there too. You witnessed that girl embracing William Miller. You saw the photo clearly. That kid must have superpowers, otherwise how could he tamper with the camera? John Fox blinked, voicing his suspicion. How did he know there was a nude photo of him inside? How did he manage to delete it secretly? Ah, I remember. A few minutes before the meal, I saw him pacing back and forth outside our room. James Fox scratched his head, then scratched it again, shaking his head vigorously. Even scratching his scalp raw wouldn't help him figure this out. Jack Turner, fuming, his face darkening as he pondered, furrowed his brow and drawled, "James Fox, John Fox, did you two not use enough of the drug? That brat wasn't drugged at all. He was pretending, luring the snake out of its hole. Was he playing the long game, waiting for an opportunity?" With that said, Jack Turner stared intently at James Fox's plump face and John Fox's gaunt one, his expression brimming with dissatisfaction. James Fox glanced at John Fox, who then looked at Jack Turner and cautiously said, "Boss, I'm certain. I used a strong dose. A regular bloke, even a tougher one, might have kicked the bucket. Enough to teach that whippersnapper a lesson, stop him from vying for the pretty ladies with you, boss, but offing him wasn't the plan, so I didn't go overboard. Thing is, the lad's got an unusually robust constitution, think it through. Any chance, say, after you dosed it, he swapped the cups. Or someone else snagged it, intentionally or not." Jack Turner paced back and forth in the spacious office, like a detective dissecting a case. "Impossible. Absolutely not." John Fox's eyes widened, darting around before he stated firmly, "I arranged everything personally. I guarantee, no slip-ups." Richard Lee and Emily Grant went out, the waiter came in. After that, not even a ghost was seen. So who else could have gotten in? When I snuck in, he was snoring like thunder. He'd guzzled so much West River Grand, dead drunk, out like a light. The second time I slipped in, the tea was gone. Everyone knows what happened next. A bit later, I called the lady over. The rest of the show, everyone was present, John Fox explained in one breath. So, airtight. But where the hell is the problem? Jack Turner sat in his executive chair, hair disheveled, shaking his head repeatedly, tapping his fingers against his temple, utterly perplexed. Does this kid actually have some kinda superpower? James Fox asked. Ha! Boosting the enemy's morale, crushing our own. Superpower, my foot. Jack Turner scoffed at James Fox's suggestion. Heh heh, Jack Turner chuckled inwardly. This guy's utterly loyal. My word is law. The problem lies with that William Miller. John Fox said enviously, infuriating, hateful, but gotta admire him. Right. That's exactly what I mean. James Fox still smarted from Jack Turner's earlier dismissal. Jack Turner's cold expression slowly morphed into a forced smile. He sighed. Why was that damned brat so lucky? He thought, lucky you, unlucky me. Lost everything. But just you wait. Boss, let's ice him. You say the word, and we'll do it. Veins bulged on James Fox's chubby face as he spoke fiercely. You crab, use your brain for once. All you know is fighting and killing. What else is there in that thick skull? Jack Turner glared at James Fox. James Fox gave Jack Turner a strained chuckle and stared down at his leather shoes. Boss, what's the next move? John Fox asked with a smirk. Haven't figured it out yet. Jack Turner leaned back in his chair, rocking it and his head, feigning helplessness. Are you planning to give up on the gorgeous Miss Grant, boss? John Fox inquired cautiously. What else can I do? Damn it. Jack Turner muttered, testing the waters. Can't let it go, boss. James Fox piped up again, his enthusiasm renewed. What do you think? Jack Turner asked John Fox with a wink. Qua's right, we can't ignore this. John Fox declared. Give me your reasoning, Jack Turner demanded. Emily Grant and Richard Lee are back together. William Miller is just a regular friend to her, and a friend of Richard Lee's too. As the saying goes, brothers before hoes. William Miller can't make a move on Emily Grant. It would be a betrayal. Oh, come on, Eel, brothers before hoes. What era are you living in? Jack Turner disagreed with John Fox's words. Boss, but William Miller is different. You and William Miller aren't on the same playing field. Your competition is Richard Lee, and he's far away. You have more opportunities to get close to Miss Grant. Beating Richard Lee is no problem. Ha! Eel, you live up to your name. Clever lad, well analyzed. Jack Turner roared with laughter. You've got me itching for a big match. His last sentence had a double meaning. However, boss, the difficulty level has also increased. John Fox wasn't complacent about Jack Turner's praise, he spoke cautiously. Why? Jack Turner was slightly puzzled. Emily Grant has a guardian angel. Who? That brat William Miller. Damn it. That William Miller brat. He's been asked by Richard Lee to look out for her, and he's a loyal guy. Now he's wary of you, especially after that nude photo incident. Annoying, annoying, so damn annoying. Get out, all of you. Jack Turner suddenly flew into a rage, waving his hands repeatedly. Come back. What is it, boss? James Fox asked. Get that girl here for me. Which girl? Which girl do you think? Yes, sir. A moment later, a gaudily dressed, flirtatious girl arrived. Carrying a small handbag, she entered with light, cat-like steps, her voice sweet and coquettish. Jack Turner, you called for me? Baby, come here. Jack Turner looked up from his crotch and beckoned. Jack Turner suffered from premature ejaculation, lasting only a few minutes, supposedly due to an overly sensitive glands. He frequently stroked and fondled it, hoping to desensitize it and prolong his performance, yearning for lasting prowess. The girl approached Jack Turner, swaying her slender waist provocatively, rubbing against him, and then resting an elbow on his shoulder. Before Jack Turner could put his arms around her, she perched herself on his lap. Jack Turner immediately lifted her onto his desk, pulled down her panties like peeling a banana, used his legs to close hers, then pulled them down further, exposing her. He spread her legs, hiked up her skirt, and took care of her right there on the desk. HNGH, Jack Turner panted, vigorously thrusting. The girl, still clutching her small handbag, chewed gum, her eyes fixed on the undulating mountains visible through the floor-to-ceiling window behind Jack Turner. Her face was expressionless, seemingly oblivious to Jack Turner's gasps. HNGH, Jack Turner glanced up at her, but his movements didn't stop, as he was at his peak. Director Turner, feel good? He, the girl asked coquettishly as Jack Turner emerged from the bathroom. Her long, red-nailed fingers hooked her red-striped panties, waving them like a victory flag in front of him. Slap. Jack Turner raised his hand and slapped the girl twice, his eyes blazing as he roared, "You whore. Get out. Get the hell out. P.S. If you enjoy the story, please add it to your collection. Hashtag Chapter 29 A Narrow Escape, please add to your collection. Ugh. I feel like I'm screwing a corpse." Jack Turner spat at the girl in disgust. Terrified, the girl jumped off the table, hastily pulled on her panties and high heels, and fled Jack Turner's office. What's going on? James Fox and John Fox entered, seeing the girl's panicked escape. James Fox questioned Jack Turner. That damn whore. Jack Turner growled, then turned to them with a grin. James Fox, John Fox, you've arrived at the perfect moment. I just had a brilliant idea. This time, damn it, you two need to focus for me. Help me. Hearing Emily Grant's frantic voice, William Miller dropped his phone and sped out on his electric scooter. Under the dim streetlights, pedestrians were sparse, scattered across the streets. William Miller looked around, the streets were quiet and peaceful. William Miller turned his scooter down an alley. William Miller rode out of that alley and turned into another. In one alleyway, he saw several shadows swaying on the ground, constantly shifting. William Miller's intuition told him something was wrong here. Without even stopping, William Miller sped towards the scene. "Get off me! You pervert!" Sure enough, Emily Grant was being pinned to the ground by several men. She was struggling and resisting fiercely. Hearing Emily Grant's faint voice, William Miller thought to himself as he rushed forward. "Let her go," William Miller roared. Under the faint light, two men were holding Emily Grant down, groping her while snickering. Pissed, William Miller furiously ran towards them. Suddenly, one of the men whistled, and the other two immediately abandoned Emily Grant and fled. "Are you all right?" William Miller bent down, solicitously asking Emily Grant, who was lying on her back. Thankfully, her clothes weren't torn by the thugs, but they were disheveled and messy. "William Miller, you finally came." Emily Grant, seeing William Miller, burst into tears, speaking with immense pain and helplessness. "I'm so sorry. Emily, I'm late." Seeing Emily Grant having been assaulted, William Miller felt a deep pang of regret. Suddenly, Emily Grant's captivating eyes widened with terror and fear. She urgently cried out, "William Miller, William Miller. Hurry! Hurry!" Seeing the alarm in Emily Grant's eyes, William Miller realized the situation had abruptly changed, that something bad was about to happen. Without waiting for her to finish, he turned around. Before William Miller could fully turn, a dark shadow descended, and a flurry of clubs rained down upon him. Thwack! 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 William Miller's back, shoulders, and head immediately took the brunt of the group attack. He blocked left and right, amidst the shower of blows, gradually, struggling to his feet. He began to fight back, lunging left, then right, punching and kicking fiercely and relentlessly. But then, William Miller, while counterattacking, gradually retreated. He was barehanded against the relentless rain of clubs. William Miller shielded his head and face, but his neck and back were struck. He covered his neck and back, but his chest and waist were hit. Clubs and sticks intertwined, like a tempest, whirling in the air, bouncing, attacking. William Miller's vision blurred, his eyes swam, flashing white, then darkening, the world spun, his eyes closed, and he lost consciousness. With a thud, he collapsed onto Emily Grant, but the blows from the clubs and sticks continued to rain down on him. "William Miller, it's all my fault. I've ruined you. William Miller." Emily Grant's gut twisted with pain, feeling worse than death, evident on her face. Clutching her chest, she paced back and forth in front of the emergency room doors, murmuring, "If I had known, I would never have called you. If I had known, I would have endured anything, even being assaulted. William Miller, I've ruined you, you must be all right." Click, the emergency room doors opened, and a doctor stepped out. Emily Grant looked up and rushed forward. "Doctor, doctor. How is he?" Emily Grant stopped the attending physician, anxiously asking. "Oh," the attending physician's eyes lit up, taking in Emily Grant's beautiful face. He smiled and said, "His back, neck, and shoulders have varying degrees of injury, his right arm is broken, and he has a severe head injury. While he's out of immediate danger, but, quickly, take him to the ICU," he paused, addressing the paramedics who were wheeling out the still unconscious William Miller. But what? "Doctor," Emily Grant practically grabbed the doctor's white coat sleeve, pleading, "Doctor, you must save him. Please save him. Don't worry. It's our duty as doctors. We'll do everything we can." The attending physician gently removed Emily Grant's soft hand from his sleeve, smiling kindly, "Come with me." Filled with trepidation, Emily Grant followed the doctor into the examination room. "Miss, take a look at this." The attending physician pointed his pen at the newly arrived CT scan, his voice authoritative. His cerebral cortex is severely damaged. You need to be prepared. He glanced at Emily Grant's tense expression. Emily Grant nodded in understanding. He'll be in a vegetative state. The attending physician adjusted his white titanium glasses, his face impassive, a professional mask. A vegetative state. Emily Grant's vision darkened, her head spun, and she stumbled. Yes. He's likely to be in a vegetative state. The attending physician replied casually, then, seeing Emily Grant sway, he caught her. Whoa there, beautiful, are you all right? His large hand landed on her full breasts, the soft, yielding sensation making him want to hold this patient's relative a little longer. Don't misunderstand. The doctor blocked the slap from the now-recovered Emily Grant, his face serious. I didn't mean to. The doctor wasn't old, perhaps 40, with a refined air. Really? Really? Thank you. I'm all right. Emily Grant stood there awkwardly, her face flushed crimson, her beauty enhanced by the blush. In that moment, she quickly pulled herself from the doctor's embrace, tears welling in her eyes, her voice choked with emotion. Doctor, is there any way you can prevent him from becoming a vegetable? That's nearly impossible. Unless a miracle happens. The attending physician spread his hands, shrugged, and sat down in the chair beside his desk. What does vegetable mean? Emily Grant murmured. A deep coma, bedridden, a person turned into a vegetable. Alive, but with almost no sensation. The attending physician leaned forward to answer, then smiled and asked, he's your boyfriend, right? Yes. Emily Grant thought for a long moment before confirming. Miss, you love him very much, don't you? Yes. You two aren't married, are you? No. What a pity. Doctor, can you explain to me what a vegetable is? I'm sorry, miss, but my hands are tied. I have to attend to other patients at any moment. May I borrow your computer? Emily Grant looked at the doctor with sincere eyes. That's fine. Please, go ahead. The attending physician stood up, offering his computer on the desk to Emily Grant. Emily Grant typed vegetable into the Baidu search engine. After clicking, hundreds of results appeared. She selected one and immediately opened it. Vegetable, severe damage to the cerebral cortex leaves the victim in an irreversible deep coma, losing conscious activity. However, the subcortical center can maintain autonomous respiration and heartbeat. This state is called a vegetative state, hence the term vegetable. Besides retaining some instinctive nerve reflexes and the ability to metabolize energy, a person in a vegetative state has completely lost awareness, including awareness of their own existence, and any active function. This is also known as a persistent vegetative state or irreversible coma. The brainstem of a person in a vegetative state still functions. When nutrients are introduced into the body, they can be digested and absorbed, and this energy can be used to maintain the body's metabolism, including respiration, heartbeat, and blood pressure. They can also exhibit some reflexes to external stimuli, such as coughing, sneezing, and yawning, but the body lacks consciousness, perception, thought, and other higher-order neural activities characteristic of humans. The EEG shows a diffuse pattern. A vegetative state is different from brain death, which refers to the death of the entire brain, including the brainstem. Brain-dead individuals have no autonomous respiration, and their EEG is a flat line. Whether to maintain the life of a person in a vegetative state by providing nutrition at great expense or to let them go remains a controversial issue. The cortical state, also known as a vegetative state, is a special form of consciousness disorder caused by various factors leading to widespread damage to the cerebral cortex, while subcortical functions are partially or fully maintained. Emily Grant's eyes filled with tears as she read. The more she read, the more her heart ached with self-reproach. William Miller, I've ruined you. Tears streamed down her face. Upon reaching the sentence, whether to maintain the life of a person in a vegetative state by providing nutrition at great expense or to let them go remains a controversial issue, she reread it 3 times, then whispered, "William Miller, I will take care of you for the rest of your life. I will never give up." "Miss, are you all right?" "What's wrong?" "Doctor, I'm fine, thank you." Emily Grant forced a smile, composing herself, rose from the doctor's chair, made way, and stepped out of the room, proceeding into the intensive care unit. William Miller lay flat on the hospital bed, his right arm in a cast. Due to being struck with a specialized weapon, coupled with his unique physiology, he had no external injuries, no blood-soaked bandages. However, he was on a ventilator and 4 fluids, entangled in tubes like a spiderweb, flanked by EEG and EKG machines. The EKG showed William Miller's heartbeat to be normal and strong, while the EEG, as Emily Grant had predicted, displayed a scattered pattern. At this moment, her mood and expression were quite calm. ####Chapter 30, The Vanished Plant Man, please subscribe. William Miller lay still as if in a deep sleep, his complexion not only not pale but unusually rosy, unbelievably like in a fairy tale. Emily Grant stood to William Miller's left, gazing at him, then slowly sat down, her hips forming a perfect curve. Her slender hands lifted William Miller's left hand, holding it, gently caressing it. After a long while, she brought his hand to her cheek, reluctant to let go, as if wanting to hold it forever. "William Miller, William Miller, William Miller." Emily Grant clutched William Miller's hand, beginning to call his name longingly, as if trying to awaken someone from a deep slumber. Across a vast field of lush green grass, William Miller, dressed in ancient fisherman's garb, ran for his life. Cavalrymen pursued him, at least 4 or 5. Yelling and surging forward like a tidal wave. Boom, boom, boom. The cavalry caught up, whipping him mercilessly. William Miller raised his hands to block the rain of blows, twisting and turning, left and right, then collapsed to the ground, his vision blurring, his head spinning. Wind howled across the field, grass swayed, fog rolled in, a desolate scene. After an unknown amount of time, a faint call echoed from afar. William Miller mumbled, his voice both familiar and strange. "William Miller, William Miller, William Miller."